It is Talkin Trash with Will Nash, and this is something that really is going to get you thinking today on today's episode. Why do people recycle, or why do they choose to not recycle? We're going to talk about this in Recycling 101 today. Welcoming back to Talkin Trash, Alec Cooley, Senior Advisor here at Busch Systems. Alec, thank you so much for being here with us once again.
Thank you. Glad to be here again. Yep.
And recycling is obviously at the heart of what we do here, and it affects so much of what we're doing for the future as well. It's such an important thing to be doing. And we know it's the right thing to do is to recycle, whether you're at home, whether you're out, whether you're in a school, wherever it is that you are. And sometimes we can get distracted. Sometimes the focus may not be there. But why do you think that we choose to or choose not to recycle?
Yep. There's a lot of different factors that play into this. When we think about how we get people to do it, oftentimes when people throw the wrong thing in the wrong bin, it's easy to throw your hands up and think people just don't care. They're not willing to do it. But that's sort of a naive, one-dimensional understanding of it. People are complex. So some of the ways that we influence recycling behavior is you got to make sure people have the knowledge. You got to give them education so they know what it's supposed to go into a bin. You want to make sure they've got access to it. If a bin is down the hallway, but they're here, they may not use it, especially if there's a trash that's even closer. So those are some key ways. A lot of recycling is about behavior, is about attention and routine, getting people into a habit. Once somebody's in a habit, they just are sort of the Energizer Bunny. They just go on their own, and that's great. But I think one area that's really underappreciated and that I like to talk about, and is really important when we talk about how we set up the actual recycling bins and that infrastructure, is the degree to which our behavior is driven by attention, or really the lack of.
Always a problem for me.
Yes.
Everyone has that problem, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, how do you, when it comes to obviously talking about, the knowledge, the attitudes, beliefs, as well as the attention span for recycling and recycling habits, Recycling 101, how do we ensure that we can keep one's attention focused enough so they know, A, to recycle, and B, to know where they're going to recycle, if that makes sense, right? It's like, how are we able to keep the focus and keep the attention? Because it's obviously so important for today and for tomorrow.
Yeah. So one of the key things is that people have a certain amount of attention they're going to give to it, and trying to get them to give more attention is more difficult than figuring out how to get them to do the thing you want with that split second that they have. And so I think there are some key ways that we do that when we're setting up just the physical interaction with bins. One is you've got to help people take advantage of sort of the mental shortcuts. I think that the term that's used is heuristics, where you have an existing knowledge of what you're supposed to do. Now you need to connect them to the information to help them make a much faster decision and quicker to recognize what they're doing. So a couple of ways we do that when we talk about the bins. First is color branding. Branding is a powerful way of driving behavior because it allows people, again, to understand what it is that their choice is. And so when you can use consistent colors like blue for recycling, and it's going to be the same here, it's going to be the same at work, it's going to be the same at home, consistent, that's one way we do that. Same concept as stop signs.
Yeah.
When you come to a stop sign, we don't have every community and every college, everybody saying, we're going to do it this color and we're going to make the signs this shape. We have the consistent red and that shape because that allows people to instantly recognize what they need to do and not have to think about it, because you don't want somebody thinking about when they're driving 50 miles an hour down the road.
That won't be pretty. Not a good idea. Now, one thing that comes to mind too, obviously like the signage, the color, that association for, for example, we're talking blue, recycling, green, composting. How important is it where the signage, where the infrastructure is placed? Like, obviously, everyone is of different heights and, different statues and that sort of thing. How important is, like, should it be eye level? Should we be looking up at it, looking down at it? Like, from a
Yep.
psychological almost standpoint, how does that play into it?
Yep. It's very important. Again, if somebody, say, is on a subway platform and they're walking down, they're trying to make their train, you've got to have it so they can access the information that tells them what their choice is as fast as possible if they have to stop and really search. So if you have a label that's that size, they may never see it. They've already walked past. They've already tossed whatever they had into the first opening. So you've got to have things large enough that people can read them, trying to anticipate the direction they're coming from. If you have something, the message is on the front of the bin and it's facing out onto the platform, but they're walking from the side, they may not see and have any idea that there is a choice until they're right there, at which point they may have already mentally walked past. So how do you anticipate the direction people are coming from to make sure they are getting the information they need at the stages where they need it?
When you're putting that sort of, infrastructure in place, or you're deciding where to put the signs, where to place the bins, that sort of a thing, how much, like, are we walking through it ahead of time, like every building that we're going through, and trying to think, okay, if I'm walking into the subway station, or I'm walking into this movie theater, where are the crowds going to be going? Like, what kind of research goes into that, to knowing where the best places are to place it?
Yeah, good question. Part of it is definitely, it's anticipating what information do people need at what stage.
Okay.
So let's say we're approaching from 20 feet away. What's the first thing you need to know is there is a choice. Right. There isn't just one bin. There are multiple bins. And so you need to be able to cue that. We do that. Again, color is one way that you can see that from 20 feet away.
Right.
As you get closer, you need to be able to identify what are the choices. There's going to be a trash or a waste. There's going to be recycling. Maybe there's an organics. And so then you need to have those words or those icons large enough that you can see them, again, from 10 feet away, let's say. You don't necessarily need to know from 20 feet away the particulars, the specific items that go into the bin. So you don't need to worry about that from that distance. But once somebody gets up to 2 or 3 feet away, you want them to be processing that information. And so you need to have whatever materials you're going to list on a size that you can see it as you approach from that distance. So there's sort of progressively the information that you convey as you get closer to them.
Are you finding, when you're thinking about that signage, or you're thinking about those visuals, what tends to be more effective, like actual text, or like emojis or visuals? Like, what do people gravitate towards more so when they're making those, hopefully, right decisions, placing it in waste, placing it in recycling? Like, what do we process faster?
Yep. Excellent question. The first thing is, we have to be efficient about what we convey. You can't put a copy of War and Peace on there and hope people are going to read it, because there's a lot more information that we would want them to know than that we're capable of conveying in that moment. And so we have to figure out what are the words or the images that can most efficiently convey that. What I think a lot of the research has shown is that it's a combination of both using words and images.
Right.
Because we process information in different ways. Words kind of give you a broad category. If you use paper, that means all sorts of different things. If you use an image, say a photograph or an icon of a newspaper or of a plastic water bottle, it's very specific.
Right.
And so
that makes sense.
By using both of those at the same time, it allows people both to understand, okay, this is broadly what goes in here, but then here are some specific items that help you to sort of laser focus in on those. The whole idea of an image, a picture communicates 1,000 words, is having both of those place a different.
Twofold almost a little bit there too, right?
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that's interesting too, we talked a little bit about, the eye level of positioning, the color branding. So you have the association with, for example, blue being recycling, green being compost and whatnot. How much are you taking into consideration the space around you, right? So say you're in a large venue, say you're in a movie theater, say you're in an arena, and, maybe it's been set up so that the bins, there's not a lot of room around you, and then like maybe there's two people in front of you disposing of their recyclables. How much do you try and make it as accessible as possible for everyone? Like, does that play into it?
Yeah, absolutely. A number of things depending on your location. You might want to have signs or something that's higher above head level.
Yeah.
Especially like a special events oftentimes. You touched on this a moment ago, but having just the signage, not just on the side of the bin, but also closer to eye level. There's research that shows that improves the likelihood that somebody will notice it and will respond to it. Because we don't look with our kneecaps. No. We look with our eyes.
That's the thing. Like if you have, for me, for example, like I'm 6'2". I know that not everybody is, but it's like if it was down, say, like you said, at knee level or, below my waist, it's like you might not notice that as much. Whereas if it's, at maybe an average height, I don't know, like whatever that would be, but like it'll be more noticeable. So you'll be able to see it and then therefore place the right things in the right bins. When it comes to the concept of, encouraging people to recycle, encouraging them to place things in the proper bins, what is your thought on, I know we kind of touched upon this in another way in a previous episode, but on like desk side bins?
Yep. So I think there's another sort of example of how this whole concept of how you get the infrastructure, the physical interaction to sort of nudge behavior. With desk side, a really good example is you can give somebody a normal size waste basket.
Yeah.
You can even give them a normal size recycling basket right next to it and have both of those. I used to work for Keep America Beautiful as a behavior organization, and we tested out this whole idea of using small clip-on trash baskets. So much smaller than your regular desk side waste basket, but something that just sort of clips onto the side of your recycling. Yeah. And the logic of that is that it's much smaller. Most of what you generate in an office is going to be recyclable. You don't need the capacity for more trash.
Right.
But at the same time, what we found is that, for instance, with paper, virtually all paper got recycled when we switched out and used the system because, again, if somebody is looking at emails or whatever, they're not paying a lot of attention, their arm just sort of drops down towards the wastebasket. It may or may not make it into the correct one. But if you make that basket really small for trash, you can't physically get it in there unless you actually make a concentrated effort to do it.
Yes.
So it's more likely to go into the recycling. So again, it's a ways of helping people recycle without having to give it more conscious thought than they have the ability to do.
And it's focus, right? It's focus, it's attention span, it's being able to keep these, almost like keeping these things in mind subconsciously. We're not even trying, like, as humans, we're not trying to think about it. It's like you just see it, you see the color, you see the signage, you see it straight ahead. Okay, I have my empty plastic bottle, whatever it is that you're about to put into your recycling or whatnot, paper and whatnot.
Exactly.
It's almost like you want us to do it, but just not have to think about it too much so that it becomes overwhelming and We
want to make it as easy as possible, remove all barriers. I mean, another example is with restrictive openings. If you have a small round circle that's about the size, a little bit larger than a can or a bottle, two things. One, that there's research that shows that people recognize the round hole and they associate that with recycling. Right. So it allows them to access that mental shortcut. This is recycling. At the same time, it also slows people down. They have to kind of concentrate. You can't just do the casual basketball toss.
No.
And so it actually slows people down and gets them to focus more attention on it.
So there is a science to it. It's not just make it.
and that's a really key thing is this is all about taking a systems approach, designing things to be intelligent. This is just like smart technology. It's how you get people to actually do the way you want to.
Yeah, and think about it and make sure that you're educated and aware of where you're putting your items and that you're putting them in the proper places so that when it comes to waste diversion and things that are associated with that, you've already kind of done the first couple of steps for moving it forward and pushing it forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Alec, thank you so much for joining us here again today. If people want to find more information about this, obviously I know you've done a lot online with, you do a lot of public speaking. You've done a lot with like our webinars and whatnot. Could they find more information in detail on there as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done a number of webinars, so we have archived on our buschsystems.com website for webinars, focus on different aspects along these lines. I've also written a number of blogs that get a little bit more into the science, actually citing examples of research that show this has an impact. It really leads to the change we want.
So much information. Senior Advisor at Busch Systems, Alec Cooley. Alec, thank you so much once again for joining us here today on the podcast. Had a great time with you. And don't forget that if you want to make sure you do not miss an episode when it drops, you subscribe, you rate us 5 stars only, please. It's Talkin Trash with Will Nash. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.